Now that we have seen ICP bounce off of its lows and we started to see it make some recovery and break some structure, have we started the road to $100? I don't know. That's exactly what we are here to answer today. And I did want to talk about a price prediction for ICP based on what we could see it hit in 2025, a cycle high, any of that type of stuff. I want to talk a little bit about that. So if you are here to learn more about ICP, get a price prediction, all that type of stuff, hit the like button. Also, do feel free to subscribe and follow for all more daily content. I do make daily content on various crypto stuff. So if you are interested, feel free to do that. Now let's go on ahead. We'll dive in. We'll actually go straight on into looking at the ICP price. We'll actually pull this up into full screen so we can see and track a little bit of what we've seen recently. So of course we are here looking at the daily charts. We can see we did see this kind of like blow off top here in December, maybe not blow off top, but it definitely was close to the high. It was not actually the high of 2024, but it was definitely a pretty nice run up from what we were seeing in the months prior. Now, of course, we did see a very, very brutal sell-off, actually hitting lows lower than what we'd seen in all of 2024, which I think was surprising to a lot of people. But since then, we have seen a 47% bounce, basically bottom to top. Not quite there yet. Obviously, you can see we've started to sell off just a little bit, but I want to zoom in a little bit here and kind of talk about what we're seeing specifically. Now, there is a reason other than just illustrating that we have seen a 47% bounce bottom to top here. There is a reason there that I did want to discuss in a little bit more detail. We'll get to that here in a second. But what we can see here is we have started to see some of the structure break. So first off, we got out of this descending channel, which is kind of the first thing that we wanted to see here. And then now we've started to see, some higher highs, not actually a higher low here, but we could potentially be putting in that first higher low at this point, which would be a good kind of shift in structure. We'd be moving from more of a descending structure into an ascending structure or a bullish structure, which would be really, really good. Now, of course, there is always the questions of what could we see as far as price predictions. Could we see that $100 price target for ICP in 2025 or potentially even early 2026, whenever this whole alt season or whatever that we're all waiting on ends up shaking out? Do we even see an alt season, right? I mean, that's another question that we need to answer. But we'll go on over a couple of different kind of price predictions that I think we could see based on some various outcomes. Now, of course, you do need to remember that this is not financial advice. You need to understand that what we're talking about here, no one actually knows the answers to. I'm just going to show you best bets of what I think could happen. But of course, we don't actually know for sure what will happen. There's just so many things that can happen in crypto, and very minor adjustments can have major impacts on the crypto ecosystem overall. So as you can see here, I did actually just put this fib retracement tool down as we were talking to talk about kind of what we've seen so far. So we have obviously, we were up at about the $15.50 range. We've come down, hit actually $4.18 is kind of being the low here. What we will see here is we have multiple different points kind of on the climb back up to those previous highs. We've got about $6.87 will probably be the first kind of major level of support. You can see this did actually, or resistance, excuse me. You can see this did actually serve as a decent level of support before we did actually break down below it. And then there we will have the $8.50 range, again, serving as a pretty minor level of support, nothing too special. And then we do have the 0.5 here, again, another major level of support before we did continue to break further and further down. And then we do have the 618 here, decent level of resistance as we were trying to make some of these bounces between that 0.5 and the 618. And then we do have the 786 here. Not really too much price action around this range, but I mean, these are the fibs. It's just based on numbers. So we can see that. And then obviously we get to the 1. Now we get to the fun part where we start looking above at fib extensions. Now, of course, the important piece to note here, we of course do need to break above all of these to get back to that $15 range before we start looking at fib extensions. But realistically, these are the various fib extensions that we do have. 1618 of about $22. As we can see, this is similar-ish to some of the highs that we saw back in March. Again, a little bit higher, about $1 higher, but it is similar-ish in terms of like where we would be looking. So I do think we'd probably be seeing a decent bit of resistance kind of between like the $20.50 to the $22.50 range. Would not surprise me if we did actually kind of struggle in this range first. Then after that, we would be looking at the $34 range, then 45 at the 3618, and then the 4236 being $52.41. So there is always that possibility. Again, road to $100, probably quite a long one. I think it would be a little bit surprising to see that actually happen inside of this current crypto market. There are some things that I do think could happen that could actually speed that along, but from a more like standard perspective, I guess we should say, looking pretty unlikely. So what I would say, maybe probably best case scenario, we're looking at about that $52 range. Maybe after that, we're more realistically, we're probably looking between like the $22 to $34 range, I would say is kind of the most reasonable bet. But also we could actually even just be looking more between like that $15 to $22 range, because we have seen ICP actually lag some of the market from what we've seen out of other cryptos. So I want to illustrate that just a little bit. If we go back into the chart here, we can see obviously bottom to top here. Actually, let me get rid of the fib chart here. So we could see bottom to top on this most recent pump, we did about 47%. On the total crypto market cap, we did about 53%. Now, keep in mind, this is everything excluding Bitcoin. So Ethereum, Solana, XRP, SWI, all these other types of things, meme coins, everything. We actually did about a 53% pump. So while they are comparable, it's very clear to see that ICP did not pump as hard as what we did see the rest of the crypto market do. Now, of course, we do have meme coins and things like that included in there, which will be running harder. But generally, if something is leading the market, it will be going up higher than the market average. And if something is lagging the market, it will be going up lower than the market average. So I do think that does call into concern some claims that we could potentially be going higher than what we might expect out of some of the others in the market. That just seems like, I think it would be a win just to keep up with the market, at least with what we've been seeing so far. Now, of course, if you are interested in trading ICP, you want to trade some of this volatility, it does look like if we go back into that full screen, we can see, a little bit of a retrace here, might be finding that support. This was kind of a decent bit of resistance before we actually broke above it. So this could be a decent level of support. We could be seeing that bounce and maybe a further move to the upside. Of course, we don't know for sure, but we are seeing that we have recovered on the RSI as well as the Bollinger Bands. So this could be a good place to take a trade. As you can see, I have been taking trades myself. We do have XRP up almost 300% here. We have SWI up just shy of 100%. We've got Ondo up about 34% and Bitcoin up about 30%. At the highs, these were, a little bit higher than this, but we have seen the market pull back a little bit. So as you can tell, still really, really great trades, even though we have seen the market pull back a little bit. And if you haven't already been following my channel, I have actually been pulling profits out of all of these consistently on the way up, just because you never know for sure kind of how high we're going to get. So I'm trying to essentially secure and lock profits while also leaving some exposure for that upside as well. And I'm taking stop losses and essentially moving them up as we continue to grow. So I'm not losing money on a winning trade because that can happen if you're not managing your stop losses effectively. So just make sure you're being careful there as well. If you are interested, I do have all those links in the description below to BTCC as well as WEEX and Phemex. BTCC, of course, has been a really, really great channel partner. As you can see, that's what I'm using to trade right here. I do also use WEEX to trade a little bit as well, and then limited amounts on Phemex as well. I do really like the grid bot option that Phemex does provide. So it's really, really great. BTCC specifically does have 10% bonuses on new deposits, which is amazing. First time deposits specifically, but then they also do have up to $10,055 in deposit and trading volume bonuses. So again, tons and tons of money there. If you are looking for a new place to trade, BTCC is in fact great. They actually did just redo their UI here. I think it looks awesome. You can see they've got cross, and I also believe they've started implementing isolated on various assets as well. So, they're definitely doing some things here to make it look a little bit nicer and make the trading experience a little bit more smooth and things like that. So if you are interested, like I said, all the stuff in the links in the description below. Now, moving on, I want to just do a little bit of a quick update on Definity, ICP, all this type of stuff, what we could be seeing going forward. Now, of course, I did just give a price prediction that, we could maybe be seeing something up in the $50 range. I think to kind of outperform that, we would need to see something absolutely spectacular happen with the launch of Caffeine AI. I think past that, realistically, I think we're probably looking at underperforming unless we can start to see some changes in the metrics here. Now, of course, I do think that the kind of the foundation of the tech and everything that ICP has built, fantastic. I don't think if you are watching this video and you are familiar with ICP, you probably believe similar things. If you are unfamiliar with ICP and are looking to learn more, you can on my YouTube channel. I do actually have a playlist of videos called All About ICP. So there's a very, very large amount of content in there if you are looking to learn more about ICP. But for those of us who do know about ICP, the tech is really quite compelling and quite interesting. However, I think it's no surprise to anybody that the difficulties or the primary issues that we have been having, or the Definity has been having, is just on the marketing side. There's not many people that know about it. The people that do are likely people who were burned from the launch of ICP and kind of the very negative price action. I think right now price is down like almost 99.9% from initial launches, and even more than that from the all-time highs. So definitely not a great looking chart, and I think it's burned a lot of people who do know about it, and just due to the limited marketing efforts, not many people who know about it that haven't been burned, just because there's been limited coverage there. So one thing that we can see though is, I think one thing that ICP is really trying to kind of capture and focus on here is on the AI agent economy. And this, in my opinion, could realistically be where ICP really starts to kind of catch fire and capture a lion's share of the AI and things like that done on crypto or on blockchain just more generally, because ICP is so good at integrating between Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I think Solana's coming soon, but like the interoperability between all of these chains is very, very strong. And this is something that I think could be a massive benefit or a massive booster to people trying to build like crypto AI agents. Because if you need a crypto AI agent that can otherwise interact semi-seamlessly in between all of these different things, it stands to reason to me that using it on ICP might be a little bit easier to like allow them to interact with various smart contracts and whatever. Of course, you could do it, I would say likely you could do it otherwise by using, bridges and things like that. But I would imagine there's going to be just a little bit more like logic and work and stuff that goes into it. But I do think that the way ICP has been built from the ground up in terms of being almost like a layer zero, really, really good. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And so what we can see here, this is the most recent post that Definity have made. We can see how developers already building the AI agent economy on ICP. From Onkai to Decide AI to Kinnick AI to Onda Framework, real projects are creating a foundation for autonomous agents to execute yield farming strategies, interact across blockchains, manage tokens and assets autonomously, and I'm sure more, but those are kind of the main things that they highlighted here. And then we could see, they provide links to how they're providing this. If you can see here, we do have Internet Computer, and then they actually have like their own like area for AI agents. So I do think there has been a pretty strong push here to discuss AI agents, things like that. Now, while this is a relatively new post, actually very new within the past couple of hours, we can see views somewhat low for such a large account. And I think this kind of speaks to the larger issue of there's just not a whole lot of hype. There's not a whole lot of interest around ICP currently. Now, of course, that can change in the drop of a hat, and that can change wildly. And of course, with that can send price absolutely rocketing. But at least right now, we haven't really seen much interest or much like hype or anything like that around ICP. And so realistically, in my mind, at least for us to see any sort of above average or semi-impressive gains that we probably couldn't just be receiving from being involved in the wider market just more generally, we need to see kind of that like spark, right? Like that triggering event that kind of sends everything else, kind of making everything the rest history. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say here, but I think you guys get what I'm saying. Like we need that like first domino to fall. And then after that, everything, becomes relatively easy, because I do think that the underlying tech is there, that will not be the holdup like it may have been for some of these others in the past. And so I do think that this is kind of the important piece. And we need to understand that like, that is how AI or that is how ICP will win, probably, is by really seizing on this AI type of narrative, because they do have the kind of underlying fundamental technology to enable this to happen. So overall, I'm really, really interested to see kind of how they kind of maneuver this. I think Caffeine AI, realistically, in my mind, it feels to me like the chart more than anything else is kind of waiting on consensus from what actually is going to be happening with Caffeine AI. that to me feels kind of like the direction that we're going. It seems like there's a lot of just kind of waiting and seeing of, what actually is AI or caffeine AI going to be able to do, and is it actually going to be useful and valuable in the marketplace. So of course, only time will tell. We will have to see exactly what happens there. But overall, I still feel pretty good. I mean, while I'm not encouraged by the price and kind of the lagging performance that we have seen in the market, I am still encouraged by the fact that like the tech is good. While that's not always a silver bullet, it does actually make me feel better especially when we're competing in a market with a lot of LARPers and tech where, it's not really even built around tech for that matter. It's more about, hype and narrative and trying to pump the token price, which I think we can confidently say that is completely the opposite of what's going on here with ICP. So overall, I'd love to hear your guys' feedback in terms of like, do you think this makes sense? Do you think that a $35 to $50 price target makes sense for 2025? Do you think when things go absolutely nuts and just everything's mooning, like, do you think we'll hit 100 guaranteed? Do you think we hit $500 if caffeine AI takes off? All this type of stuff. I'd love to hear you guys' feedbacks in terms of price predictions. This may be a little bit more of like a mild and muted type of price prediction than some of the ones that I have done in the past. And I think part of the reason for that is just because we haven't seen some of that development that I think I would have expected to see by now in terms of like caffeine AI is still delayed. We've seen a lot of growth that we were seeing start to taper a little bit. Now, obviously the growth is still happening, but the rate of growth has actually started to slow down a little bit, which of course is not a bad thing, but it's also not a good thing. Of course, things are still growing, but you usually want to see the rate of growth continue to increase and continue to accelerate, which we haven't really seen. Also, of course, price action has just been absolutely abysmal. So that's another thing that, of course, does not inspire a whole bunch of confidence. But as I mentioned ad nauseum on the channel here, price is only one in a very futile way to indicate true value. Price, of course, look at Ethereum. Ethereum was kind of the dog a couple months ago, and now it's like, oh my gosh, Ethereum's back, all seasons coming, all this type of stuff. So narratives change on a dime. Do not be listening to people in terms of what their take of the minute is, because of course it does change with the weather. So just make sure that you're doing your research, you understand what's going on in the market. And I will, of course, now get off my soapbox and just invite you guys to like and subscribe if you did find the information in this video useful. Really, really does help me out. I do appreciate it massively. Also, if you have any comments, as I mentioned before, I really, really would love to hear your feedback in terms of what what your thoughts are with ICP and how you actually could see this year kind of rounding out. So overall, I'd really, really love to hear it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.